Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video, and this video is going to be the first video of the new year. Sitting here in my room on this miserably cold January afternoon. Even though I'm in Florida, it's still quite cold here today. So I thought I'd do a little bit of flying and do a little bit of recording as well. I am here at the Carl Sagan Space Center. Kind of zoom out, you can see where we're at. And I am in the XR2 Ravenstar, which you can see here mounted to the side of the HCLV. This particular scenario is a copy of the starting scenario that I set up when I made the Earth to Ganymede flight. But the only difference here is that we're not going to be using the aerofreighter, so the aerofreighter's not in orbit like it was in that scenario. And I've got the date just set for today, which is Friday, January 3rd, 2014. So we'll have to find a suitable launch date to go to the target planet, which in this case is going to be Mars. Haven't done a flight to Mars in a while, so I thought I would do that. And to change things up a little bit, instead of going and landing at Olympus like I have in the past, I'm going to go to Phobos and land on Phobos. So that's going to present some interesting challenges, pseudo challenges at least. Probably do, we will do aero braking when we get to Mars because we don't want to, burn a bunch of DV just to do braking. And we'll have to time it so that the timing all works out and makes sense, with regards to the line of nodes between Mars and Phobos, and preferably so that Phobos is at a particular point in its orbit so that when we do the aero braking and come back out the other side, we'll catch Phobos at apoapsis. Not real sure how I'm going to work all that out. As usual, I'll just make it up as I go. So let's switch camera views here before I forget. And let's jump in and start setting things up. So F1 to get inside the flight deck of whichever thing I've got selected, which is the HCLV. That's fine because we'll be starting off with that. So first of all, I'm going to bring up TransX on both sides. And this is the new version of TransX, by the way. I haven't actually recorded a video since the new version was released, so this will be the first time using it, so we'll get to show off some of the new features of TransX. And again, this isn't going to be targeting the absolute beginner, so I'm assuming, if you're at least somewhat advanced or somewhat familiar with TransX already. So let's just jump in here. Let's go escape, forward to Mars, and forward to create the stage 3, view the encounter, forward on this side, view the eject plan. And what we're going to do here, actually let me bring my mic a little closer, it sounds a little quiet. Let's see if that's better. What we're going to do first of all is we're going to start by changing prograde, outward, and change plane. We're going to set those to the auto min, so you get to see how this works. So auto min here, and auto min here, and then auto min for the change plane. Now we'll go to the date variable, and just by adjusting the date, then the other variables, these will be automatically set to their minimum value that's necessary to get us to where we want to go. So let's put that in. You can see as soon as I start adjusting the date, it automatically tries to find a solution for us. And it looks like it's already found one, but of course, we can tell just by looking at this dashed yellow line, this dashed, hypothetical, that this is less than ideal. We can get to Mars doing this, but this puts in so much delta V that it would raise our orbit way out here. And, it's just not ideal. I mean, you can tell just by eyeballing it. It's telling us that the total delta V used would be 3.891 K. That in itself isn't maybe ridiculously high, but it's higher than it has to be. Especially when you take into consideration that the total delta V given here, this actually isn't your injection cost. This is just a combination of the prograde, change plane, and outward. There's a mathematical formula that's used to calculate that number. So that number, to get to Mars, we would actually need this plus a little bit more because this isn't the whole injection cost. Anyway, let's just keep going forward on the date. Let's go to a rough setting so we get through it faster. And what we're looking for basically, if we're going to leave Earth, here, we want to arrive somewhere, roughly on the opposite side. And we'll watch our total delta V. Now here's interesting too. Here we don't quite have a solution, but we're close. If we wanted to, have a really low delta V, we could start work. We could go for some kind of a solution like that. But notice the time of flight is almost a full year. But that's just something to note. If we tweaked around with that with that date a little bit, yeah, right there we've got a solution. We're hitting Mars, and that's only going to cost us, about 3,000. That's getting really close to about as low as it gets. You can get a little bit lower than that even, but again, that has a total flight time of 346. And what I'm looking for is something that's a little bit less than that. So let's just keep going forward on the date. Just bringing it around. And here we're coming up to a solution again. You can tell by the way things are shaping up. So let's do an adjustment, go to course. And let's go back to rough for just a moment, get that a little bit farther out. Now course. And it looks like we're going to have a solution about over here. That still doesn't look all that great to me. Our total delta V's come down a bit. Originally it was like 3.9. This is closer to a normal solution where we've got a total flight time of 182 days. By the way, I really like these new features of TransX. Being able to see this information here without having to go and look at your arrival date in MJD format, by the way, and then look at your eject date in MJD format, do the subtraction, and then calculate the days manually. It's really nice that it's now here. So we kind of probably can beat that. Let's keep going forward a little bit. Go to rough setting. Let's see what we have here. So we've got a lower delta V, but we've extended our flight time again all the way out to about a year. So let me just go around a little bit more, see if I can find something better. Let's see what we have here. Total flight time 169 days. DV of 3.2. Okay, just out of curiosity, I want to see what happens if I catch it farther out. Oh, that's terrible. We've got a longer flight time, and we've increased our delta V cost significantly. So, and that's odd too, because that actually looks like a perfect Hammond transfer. So I don't quite understand why the DV is so high. All right, so let's go backwards a little bit, and let's take this one over here. Okay, so that's got a solution. Let's see though if we can do any manual tweaking to make it better. So let me turn off. Let's see, which one should I shut off? Let me turn off prograde. So now it won't automatically adjust that. And let's turn off outward. Actually, let's turn them all off. Okay. And so we're looking at 160 days, 2.986. So all right, let's start by taking out some plane change. Actually, let's reset the plane change. Let's see what we can do. If we extend the flight time a little bit, take out some prograde. That should also lower our encounter velocity. It does. And now let's put in some plane change, but let's also take out some of that outward. Okay, so let's go... Actually, let's do this. Let's put the plane change back on automatic. I guess it'd be faster to go backwards. And let's leave that set, and then let's start taking out some outward. Notice the total delta V is coming down, the time of flight's increasing. A normal flight time out to Mars is like 8 months, so that would be about 240 days. Notice our lines are coming around, so we might have to add in some more prograde. 2.608, and again, that's not the injection cost. It's going to cost a little bit more than that. So let's remove all the outward. Okay. Now, obviously we need plane change now. Other direction though. That's a lot of plane change, so we went the wrong way. I guess the encounter velocity isn't terribly important because it's Mars, so we'll be able to do aero braking, so I really shouldn't worry about the encounter velocity. Let's prograde. I should have wrote down what the automatic solution was. I didn't make a note of it. I think it was 2.6. So we are not doing better here. Okay, let me look at the automatic setting again. So automin on, automin, okay. I guess I did do better on my own. Okay, 2.9. But what was it on the other side? Like if I go forward in time. That's ridiculous. So let's go backwards. Okay, so let me just make some notes here, because otherwise I will forget. And you can follow the logic here. I mean, the automatic setting, does a pretty good job, but there are certain things that it can't really take into consideration that a human would, would decide is better. So at the absolute minimum, about 3K. So that's the best it comes up with on a 167-day flight, and then the encounter velocities, we'll call it 4K. Now, that's not terribly important to me. But let's do this. Let's go and remove all the outward. And we'll manage the other variables manually now. So let's take out some prograde. And actually, let me reset plane change and then manually set it. Okay. Kind of watching the closest approach there. That's about as low as I'm seeing it at the moment. Let's play with the date a bit. So go forward with the date. You can see the closest approach coming down. And that's got us out to Mars, more or less. Okay, now let's work with plane change here a little bit. And date. Okay, so that's Mars. All right, now that is 2.8 4K. Our cost here, of course, again, that's not the ejection cost. 200-day flight. So we add about 33 days to the flight and save 100 and some odd delta V. Not necessarily worth it, but we do bring our encounter velocity down quite a bit, so that's something. We'll go ahead and take this solution. I'm going to go ahead and say this one's a little bit better. This is always something to take into consideration when you save a little bit of delta V. In this case, we're saving about 150 meters per second, which really isn't much at all. But we're adding 33 days to the flight. Is that worth it? If it's a space probe, probably. If it's a human flight, maybe not. Because a human flight, you have a whole month of additional discomfort, and you have that much more LOX that you have to carry. So that's always something to consider. All right, now let us Control F4, go to the scenario editor, and we're going to set the date in this scenario to this date that we come up with here. Our eject date 58243, but we're going to go 1 day prior to that. That way, we have time for launch and everything. So 582422324, and apply. And of course, when you do that, it kind of throws everything out a little bit. So you have to see if there's any additional adjustments that you need to make. So maybe go to plane change and just bring everything back in so that it's good. And that looks pretty good there. Okay, so now let me Control S to save this scenario. This is going to be before we take off, and this is out to 2018, so obviously we missed a launch window in there somewhere. But we'll go ahead and use this launch window anyway. And think here, what else do we want to do? Let's check our XR2, see what kind of fuel it's carrying and LOX and all of that. All right, so we have 14 days of LOX. That's not going to work. Let's bring up the payload view, and we'll leave the cargo bay closed, because we'll just use the editor. So this one is set up with 2 main fuel, and I don't think we need that. So let's let's take out. Let's see if we can get away with the half-LOX module. Okay, so number 3 is empty. Oops. All right, there we go. So now number 3 has a half-LOX, and the number 2's got a main fuel. There's actually a better way to position these. I think you actually want to do it the other way around for center of gravity considerations. Although I don't know that it actually matters in the XR2. I don't know that its cargo bay area takes that type of thing into account. But in theory, at least, you might want to have the fuel in number 3 so that it'll burn out and you can deploy it, and then the LOX that you're going to continue to carry throughout the whole flight will be in number 2. So let's actually change those. So we'll make that the half-LOX, and then number 3 will make a main fuel. Okay, there we go. Okay, so yeah, 3's got the main fuel, and then as we take off, we're going to burn. We'll burn through that. Actually, we'll do a vertical launch, but after when we do the ejection burn, we'll burn through that first, and then we can deploy it. Okay, so let's see if that gives us enough LOX. It does, and a good margin. We've got 2 extra weeks, so that's fine. Okay, now and we've got the scenario saved, but let me save it a second time because I just made changes to the LOX and all that. So Control S, and actually before I do that, before I save it, let me go back here to stage 1 and let's change our information here. So PE distance, of course, is going to be 6571. Actually, we could just input it. 6571 and view over to setup, graph projection to plan, view back over to escape plan, var to eject orientation. Did I just crash transx? Oh, I know what I did. Yeah, VAR. Here I put 6571. It's got to be, I guess you can't do it that way. So 6571 0100, I think. Oops. Try that again. One too many zeros. There we go. Okay, that's why it was looking odd to me. Right now, the eject orientation, we don't really need to set it here because we're going to have to warp time forward anyway, but let's figure out what heading we would have at the moment at least. Okay, so that would be a heading of 208. It's backwards. Let's go around the other way. And over here, we would have a heading of 126, no, 29. Okay, so we're going to have to fast forward time and find out when the best time to take off is, but at least this gives us a starting point. Okay, now Control S to save that part of the scenario, or save the scenario here at this point. And I'm going to go ahead and end this part of the video here. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at a couple of spreadsheets, at least one spreadsheet that I have that will help us determine our fuel calculations and everything. This is going to be the default configuration for the XR2, so I don't think, actually, I'm sure there's not going to be any issue with having enough fuel or not having enough fuel, especially since we're doing the vertical launch. But we'll go ahead and look at it in the spreadsheet just to actually see it, confirm everything, have real numbers to go by. If you like this part of the video, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, thumbs down. And if you do like all this space stuff and you're not already subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified when I upload new orbiter videos. And I will see you in the next part.